how did you get that role for anyone who's looking to get advice?
Building your network out, documenting it, the best teams are kind of comprised where...
That's awesome advice. Do you really believe that you can kind of like do 1 year here, jump ship and go to the next one?
It's really difficult to say what one route is better. All I would say is...
It's another Digital Cheesecake Podcast, guys. So this is our first episode for Series 1. We've got myself and Ellie back in the room, and then we've also got the fabulous Sarah, who's the other director of Bleed Digital Recruitment. And James, welcome. How you doing? You okay?
Very well. Good to be here. Thank you, gang.
So if anyone doesn't know who James is, so James has got a really interesting background. So he's been in e-commerce and digital for many years. You've been a head of online trading at Bowden before, head of online trading at Tesco, MD at TM Lewin, and now MD at Rapa Nui. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, your background, I was hoping you give us a quick whistle-stop tour of your background.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Approaching 20 years quite scarily in
it goes quick.
Retail now. Yeah. So here we are. I kind of see my career in two parts so far. So the first part at large public corp. So did nearly 9 years at Marks and Spencer, 3 years at Tesco. Great places to learn your craft. And then the last 5 or 6 years, I kind of transitioned from large and public to small to medium private enterprises. So a year at Bowden, paused for a year actually during COVID to study again. So did a master's in data science.
You mentioned.
And then ran TM Lewin for 2.5 years, which was great experience. And the last year, running a scale up, so a clothing company called Rapa Nui Clothing, sustainable fashion based out of the Isle of Wight.
Nice. And how was Isle of Wight, the transition from going to London to Isle of Wight?
Yeah, it's been quite a change. That was kind of part of the attraction. I wanted a new experience personally and professionally.
Yeah.
The summer, gorgeous.
Nice.
Festivals.
Isle
of Wight Festival.
Lots of festivals, lots of arts and crafts. Winter, very different. But great experience and really enjoyed it.
Nice. And how was it? Because you've worked for these big corporates before, doing the hardcore trading for like Tesco, Bowden, M&S, like you said. So how was it from going from these big commercial companies to owner-led businesses? What was that change like? Was it a challenge or just something totally different?
Yeah, different. I always think there's not better than the other. There's different, there's pros and cons always. And I think it's very, from a career perspective, it's very, what do you need at that point in your career with where you are? There's loads of great stuff that come from learning from, big corps and, great professional behaviours. And then equally, there's loads of great stuff that come from being in places where there's not quite so many layers of sign off and you can move fast and get stuff done. So I think it's very much dependent on where you are in your career, what skills you need to develop, both technical and soft, and trying to, put yourself on the right seat, but the seat in the right organisation as well.
I think Ellie was in a situation where you were working for a private equity business, so...
Love it, everyone drops a P line.
Quick decisions.
Drop P. Yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, it's like you've gone from both, right? Corporate and to the founder-led. So I think it's all obviously about the return piece, right? And you probably had that in the last year is like quick returns, but also scale and then don't scale and don't spend all the money.
Yeah, definitely. We re-platformed and rebranded the business inside a quarter this year.
Nice.
That's that would take
all
a
in
long
5
time.
days.
all in 5 days. It felt like 5 years.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to get stuff done. I know we say when you're kind of learning your career, go be around the people who are doing it. So if that means that you need to be somewhere that's smaller, great. Go and get that experience. It's all about experiences.
And what advice would you give to somebody who is scared to join a smaller business, who's been in that big corporate? What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about doing that?
Yeah, I think, being prepared to take that leap of faith is half the battle, right? And so often, even through through challenges, nearly all the time, you kind of look back and you see those challenges positively. Like cliched and cheesy, but what's the worst that can happen? I do genuinely believe it is about experiences, and failure's fine, and actually learning from that will probably accelerate your own learnings and the value you can add to organisations in the future. So I think being prepared to take the leap of faith, do it in a measured way. It doesn't have to be from overnight or from the largest to the smallest. There are stepping stones that you can take that work for you. But I would encourage people generally to go for it and be brave.
And you talk about some of those failures. So what are some of the biggest failures that you've learned from, say, in the last year, the last 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, plenty of retail bloopers over 20 years, which we can cover. Actually, maybe we just go back very quickly.
Let's just go through it.
Yeah, why not? Let's make
Therapy
about
session.
my mistakes. Oh, God. I mean, we ran a surprise and delight program at a large retailer previously, and basically, we decided it would be a good idea to put chocolate through letterboxes.
Nice.
And we got a lot of
awesome.
complaints from people with dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. Another one.
I just thought, sorry to interrupt you, but it would have been the melting factor, but that was just my Australian thought.
Well,
but...
we probably had a bit of that going on as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, no, lots of calls to the customer services with pets. Yeah. Yeah, another one. I actually remember sending a load of England merchandise to Welsh stores during a summer football tournament.
Yeah.
Oh
Wales
my
Gosh,
God.
They
that
will
sounds
not allow
so
that.
good.
So that didn't go down that well either.
Yeah.
How to offend colleagues and customers in one hit. So, this year, we done some great stuff. We got some stuff wrong, and you just have to learn from it. That's,
Just roll with the punches.
Yeah. I always think culturally, so long as you're learning from your the stuff that doesn't work and you're transparent and applying it, then it's it's not a bad thing. I'm not Matt Saeed, Black Box Thinking, fantastic book around learnings and contrasts, different
Okay.
industries and their approach to failure. So if you haven't read that one, I'd really recommend it.
Put it on the reading list.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I think a lot of people are scared of that kind of fear of failure. So how do you feel that you would kind of get past that?
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing,
Yeah.
right? And that's easy to say. I always say culture's the hardest thing to do, right? And it's not easy. Ultimately, it's then down to your bosses and your bosses' bosses as to how they perceive failure. But if you nurture that culture in the right way,
True.
I do genuinely believe failure can be an asset.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm not saying it's easy because it is a cultural challenge in organisations. Frankly, if your bosses beat you with a stick because something went wrong, clearly it's a tough thing to do to embrace failure.
Yeah.
And that's where my point would be more broadly towards organisations and leaders around the culture that they nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
One
a
of the
good
things
point.
that we spoke about just before the podcast, which I wanted to talk to you about. So loads of people this year have gone from marketing director or e-commerce director to general manager, MD, CEO. So upsetting a lot of CFOs, financial directors who usually get those roles. So how did you get that role for anyone who's looking to get advice? And how was that transition going from head of e-commerce online trading to MD of TM Lewin? Was it an easy transition? How did you find it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in terms of how I kind of got it, I guess two things really. Importance of networking always, and doing that proactively, like a work project. Actually, take it seriously. Building your network out, documenting it. Who's in different spaces, who can you speak to, friends of friends.
That's awesome advice.
So,
That's really good.
I think taking it really seriously.
Yeah.
And then a little bit like I said earlier, actually just your risk profile. Are you prepared to take the leap of faith?
Yeah.
It's kind of one part. In terms of the challenges that come with it, I think probably two things. One is like any role, when you move from specialist to generalist, you kind of have to have a plan around that, right?
Yeah.
So an MD's remit is end to end running the business, and so whether you've been a CFO or a marketing director, you then need to understand enough about all parts of the business. Doesn't mean you have to be the expert in every part, but you have to know enough to be that conduit to almost glue across the different functions and add value and make decisions. So build a plan around that, right? So if you're a marketing director, don't just talk conversion value at a platform, talk the same sales language that finance might talk. Or, if you're always driving growth as a marketing director, well, actually, how do you scale that growth operationally in terms of how the warehouse operates, or what that means in terms of how many bums and seats you need from a customer services perspective?
Yeah.
So, building that knowledge across different parts of the business is key as you move from specialist to generalist. I often talk about T-shaped employees.
You mentioned that T-shaped.
Yeah, so like the top of the T, the horizontal part is just knowing a little bit about lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, the vertical part is kind of like your specialism. And the best teams are kind of comprised where that specialism is across different functions, right?
Cool.
So yeah, I think that's the key part.
I mean, on that though, I always get this controversial topic because do you think that for some people listening that are like, should I stay in the current job to wait the next 6 years to get promoted and then get to CMO? Or do you really believe that you can kind of like do 1 year here, jump ship and go to the next one? Because that was kind of, I did that in my experience of agency world, but I know client side is totally different. So what do you think?
Yeah, I always worry about giving like hard and fast binary answers on these things.
Sorry, I'm the worst for that. I want solutions straight away.
Yeah. Let me give you the answer. So like, without prescribing a, I come back to what I said earlier, which is about experiences. I stayed my first 12 years in Tesco MS, and I always felt like it was 2 organisations, but I felt like I did 12 different roles because they're such large organisations. Every year or 18 months, whatever project I was working on felt like it was a new challenge. On the other side of the fence, you can accelerate those learnings, I think, when you do put yourself in a completely different type of organisation as well. Yeah. So, it's really difficult to say what one route is better. All I would say is, ask yourself honestly, is your experience kind of maximising your...
You're so right, because you want to be able to have that experience, right? Like, it's more about, okay, are you challenged? Which is probably why, like, some roles I've moved on to are because I wanted a new challenge, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you kind of want versus I just need to be promoted.
Exactly. If you're in the same role and you're doing the same stuff that you're doing in the first 6 months, probably some questions to be asked.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you need to push the abort button and eject that organisation. It's just actually how can you put yourself in the right seat in the right organisation where you're going to maximise your experiences.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Makes sense.
Really nice. Going on the advice theme, I guess, then. So we do speak to a lot of people who are looking for that next step at kind of mid-level, maybe senior level management. What do you feel would be like your kind of killer advice that someone needs to focus on to get to that next step?
Yeah, great question. I'm a sucker for hard work pays off.
Yeah.
So, there's unfortunately, there's often no shortcuts or silver bullets. So, hard work pays off for sure in the long term. But also, I try to navigate your career such that, you're doing stuff you enjoy and that you're interested in and that you're good at. Yeah. So quite often I'll take a blank piece of paper with my team and say, draw like 2x2 matrix, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what do you what do you not enjoy, what you're not so good at, and try and just complete that exercise. Because so often when you kind of say to someone, actually, what should my career be, you kind of get into job titles and it's just the process isn't fit for purpose. So I think it needs to be stripped back and almost go back to maybe when you're an adolescent and you're kind of planning your career, even if you're 20 years in. And do you enjoy working with people, or do you enjoy working independently? Are you creative or are you quantitative? And almost really, really try to strip it back. And I think if you go through that process and do it when you've got some thinking space, maybe on a Saturday morning, over a latte, and give yourself a little bit of time and talk to people that you know and trust. And I think, that coupled with hard work and a bit of a strategy around the types of roles and organisations that you like to work in, I think we get you to a good place. Yeah,
because it's just not simple, is it? It's not really a simple thing. It's kind of, that is, when we're young, we are taught to, what do you want to be when you grow older? I think mine was fashion designer. I don't know.
Me too.
Yeah.
When I went into it, I was like, oh, this is not for me. I need to go digital. I need to make some money.
Yeah. So it's just
and that's it. Like, you learn some stuff along the way, right?
Yeah.
That I had the most incredibly supportive parents, but this career wasn't their world. So it was more blue collar. And I was always a bit envious, frankly, of people who had that counsel and knew they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. But I think if you kind of follow that process and you talk to friends and family and professionals, I think you'll find your path.
Yeah, I like that.
That sounds really easy. Yeah. That sounds so nice. Everything you're saying sounds so lovely.
I definitely like the paper thing. I feel like
I love the paper
thing. It's good to do that even yearly, right? When you're reviewing, okay, what do I want to do for next year, or what do I want to do for the next few months, and then that's a really.
It's just finding the time. Is this why there's Christmas period?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That little period between Christmas and New Year, where we're all scratching our heads. Yeah. Is it Tuesday or is it Saturday? Get your piece of paper out.
I want to do it. I'm going to do it on the plane.
I like that. And then what about kind of also on the advice piece? So, it's been an interesting market, lots of interviews, people are going for lots of interviews, and some are kind of getting interviews or getting through processes quite quickly. Some might feel that they're kind of knocking their head against the wall. What do you look for? What impresses you the most when someone comes to interview with you?
Yeah, great question. I rightly or wrongly, I always recruit on character.
Yeah.
So
Great
I'm
advice.
a big believer that you can, you teach the skills. People can learn the jargon. Sometimes they can't unlearn it. And the best teams are, firstly, business is a team sport. I talk teams, not individuals. And it only takes one rotten apple to to cause problems. And so first and foremost for me, character and attitudes. So are they a good egg? Are they hardworking? Are they team players? Are they bought into our mission like that? And I'll scrutinise that from a character perspective.
Okay.
And what they've done up to this point. Even basics around punctuality and do they do the simple things well? So that would be my starting place. And of course, dependent on what they're coming in to do, you'll then move towards have they got the experience and expertise to complete the requirements of that role. But first and foremost for me, it's around character.
Question on that though, how did you, even when we had COVID, right, how could you judge their character always remotely? I've had challenges where I struggled and I actually should always have met them in person.
Yeah.
For me, 100%.
Yeah, it was hard, for sure. I haven't got an answer, unfortunately.
Everyone gets it wrong and right? Like, you can't get it, you guys would know.
100%.
I think that's almost comes back to what we said earlier. Recruitment's like no other, is it the same as any other part of the business? You will get some stuff wrong.
Yeah.
So long as, you manage those times that you get it wrong as well, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
But on balance, I think if you go for a robust process, you'll get more right than wrong. But yeah, COVID was really difficult, right? Just not being able to meet people,
hard.
heightened those challenges.